Hey, what's up? Welcome to new series. In this series, we'll build our API from scratch. So this is the first video where we'll be learning about API authentication. So let's get started. I'll create a new project with Laravel new and I'll name project Passport for now. Actually, I've already created it, so I'll cd into that and open it up on Sublime. Okay, so this is a brand new Laravel 5.6 project. So I've done basic setup steps like specifying database, username and password. Also, I have already run PHP artisan make auth. Of course, you need to run PHP artisan migrate before. So after running PHP artisan migrate, I've run PHP artisan make auth. So you can, if you are not familiar with this API and this OAuth thing, I recommend you read this OAuth 2. So this first article is pretty cool. So this will make you familiar with all the terminologies used in this video. So what client is, what resource owner, server, etc. So you can pause the video and read this documentation. Alright, so first step is to install this package. So this is the package which we need to require using Composer. So I'll quickly do that. Paste that on terminal. So wait for it to finish. Once it is done, so in my case I've already installed to save some time. So once that Composer this password is installed, yeah, you can run PHP artisan migrate. So after that you can run PHP artisan migrate and it will create new tables, these OAuth related table, OAuth access token, auth codes, auth clients. Okay, after that you can run PHP artisan passport install. So what that will do is that will create these clients. So we'll talk about them later. For now, just follow along. Alright, after this step is done, we have to include this as API trait to our user model so that we can access some methods allowed by this package. Okay, so switch to Sublime, go to user and include has API tokens. So make sure to use this. Okay, after that is done, we need to define passport related routes. So these routes will be used by the package to generate token and all other stuff, which we'll be covering in a moment. So first we need to define this route. To define that, just go to auth service provider. Switch to Sublime, go to auth service provider, and inside boot you can define it here, passport routes. Now that our routes are registered, let's go to config auth and tell Laravel to use this passport as a driver for API authentication. So let's go to config.auth and under API driver, now switch that to passport. So I've already switched that. Alright, now we have set up passport. Now let's learn about how we can use it. So so suppose in our this application, let's go to api.php. So currently we have just one route, API/user, which returns us the logged in user. So suppose someone want to access this resource. So the application who want to access this resource or any other resource that we create, that we expose through a API, that needs authentication. Currently we are authenticating, this requires authentication, so we are protecting it with auth middleware. So in order to do that we use passport, but in order to implement that we need to test it. So in order to test that we can use the Postman. So in later in this series we'll create another separate client application in Vue.js or React, so whatever. Okay, so this is the get route. Let's send get request to this URL. So let's change header to JSON. So currently it is returning as HTML response. So it says as unauthenticated. So in order to access that, we need to pass a token, access token. So before learning how to access the token with which we can make API requests, I want to give you a quick overview of OAuth workflow and type of OAuth to authentication workflows. So here, as I already mentioned, this is really helpful article, and here are basic terminologies: resource server, client, authorization server. So in our case, the authorization server and resource server is this passport.test server, so where this is stored, because it this server contains resource, and it is the same server is responsible for authorizing all requests, and the client will be some application that will construct. So currently the client, you can take this as a client. From here we are sending request. So resource owner will be ourselves, and same thing, access token, that is responsible, that is required to make a request to access the resource. So these are some terminologies. So main thing is this authorization grant types. So one is authorization code grant workflow, grant flow. So there are some type of authorization grant types. So one is authorization code grant flow, So Passport provides all kind of these use cases. So you can, if you go down to explore the documentation, you'll find different kind of Passport grant tokens, creating a client. So all these stuff, client credential grant tokens. So in order to understand all these, you need to understand this these workflow first. So first one is this. So this is useful when someone is trying to get the credential of user. So let me give you examples. For example, if you go to any website like so you want to log in to this website, so you have option continue with Google, continue it with Facebook. So for example, let's take this website as a Google for now, and here is that button. So when someone hits that button, it will take us to some URL with client ID and all other parameters, and then what happens is it asks you to log in. So currently Quora wants to get your information from Google, so that's why this Google is asking you whether I should allow this Quora to get your information or not. So that's what happening here. So when you hit login, so first you need to log in, and then it will ask you to allow. So when you hit allow, it will verify this client ID and all these, passes access token, and all other inside thing happen. So that is all listed here. You login consent, authorization code request, it will pass us access token, and all this workflow. So another type is so I think that login we don't require quite often. So currently we are creating a simple application like article or some phone contacts. I'm not sure about that. So we'll allow user to access those resources. So for that we'll create another application. From there user will come to that website and register. So the all user will be created in this server, so we don't require that workflow. So what we require in this case is passport grant tokens. So what this will do is we need to pass the username and password in order to get access token, and client ID and client secret will use up the client which is already created in this server. So I know it is a bit confusing, but let me give you example. So we don't need to run this because we already run password install, and that already created these two clients. So personal access client and password grant client. So we require this password grant client. So we'll use this client to generate access token. That's it. So that is what we require in this application. Okay, so let me demonstrate how we get the access token. So let's go to Postman, and first we need to obtain access token before posting this request. So I will open up new tab. So first we'll access that token. So that token we can get when user completes registration, and after registering we'll return that. So here is endpoint oauth/token. We need to send the post request to this endpoint to get the token, and we need to pass these. Okay, let's open side by side. Okay, so we need to pass these as a body. So first one, so grant type password, client ID. So client ID will be this ID. Sorry, that will be client secret. Client ID is 2, client secret, and client ID is 2. What else? Username. So username will be email, and password. So again, these requests will be sending from our front end, so don't worry about that yet. We'll create that username and password. A password will get after user registers, so we'll know what the username and password is because this part user enters. Okay, so these two will be hard coded, or we'll store these in some config. So for example, let's use some existing user. So we have this existing user. Let's use this username, and password is secret. Okay, so let's send the request. There we go. So we get access token, refresh token, everything. So now in our client application, front end application or view application, we'll store this access token in some safe place, probably on local storage or other state, and then use this access token to access the protected resource. So the way we do is authorization bearer, and previously it is saying us unauthenticated. Now let's try. There we go. This time we get the information. So this will be the workflow. So user will register first with all this form, and will request for access token, and we get that, and with that, so it will be all programmed on our application. So we'll learn how we'll do all this. So there is already one series in my channel. You can watch that if you want to know that, but we'll do it in modern way in coming videos. So stay tuned with the channel. So subscribe and turn on notification. Also, if you like the video, please consider liking, and I will see you in the another video of this series. Bye.